The library has shown me desperation, anger, helplessness. Through it, however, I've also seen empathy, compassion, and humanity. When I joined a small public library in central London as an assistant last year, I was not remotely ready for what was in store. My original idea of working at a library was quite romantic, neatly placing books onto shelves, enthusiastically recommending titles, answering inquiries about membership, and maybe dealing with a few odd disputes over fines. All in all, a quiet, purposeful existence punctuated by craft activities, community meetups, storytelling, and nursery rhyme time. Instead, I had an emotionally intense experience woven by a tapestry of moments as mundane as they were poignant. Born and raised in Hong Kong, I have loved libraries since I was a child. I still have fond memories of trips to our local branch, carefully deciding which books to borrow. I knew my mom was too busy to take us there all the time, so I had to make every trip count. Back in those days when Hong Kong was just pulling itself out of poverty and social mobility seemed genuinely within reach, reading was believed to be a key to a better future. My family also had such hopes. My grandfather was an orphan. My mom left school at 13 to work in a factory where she met my dad. During the 1967 Hong Kong riots, when roadside bombs made regular news headlines, that year the police defused as many as 8,000 homemade bombs, of which 1,100 were found to be real. Many people would opt for public transport as a safer way to travel. Meanwhile, my mom, a 13-year-old child, walked to save a few precious cents. She had seen her parents worrying about feeding the family and wanted better for us. Our local library was well used. Even the children's section was quiet, filled with purposeful-looking little bookworms browsing the shelves. Children needing to let off steam were expected to go to a playground. It was a haven of stories, fun facts, and imagination, joyful but orderly. Fast forward 4 decades, having worked most of my career in arts, marketing, and communications, I found myself with an opportunity to forge an unusual new path. I decided that working at the library part-time would fit into this journey. In the summer of 2023, I walked into the small public library thinking it would only be a minor excursion from my existing career. Perhaps with a livelier atmosphere than my university's interlibrary loan department, where I worked many years ago. Instead, all of my naive notions about libraries were shattered instantly. Within the first hour of starting the job, my manager had to ask a visitor to put his shoes on. There were no socks. The man was lying down across an entire sofa. When asked to sit back up, he grumbled. He had 2 large, fully filled, worn-out nylon bags with him. Maybe there wasn't a safe space to keep his possessions. Maybe he was worried about things being stolen. In the following days, I quickly realized I was well out of my depth. In other jobs over the years, I was used to classical musicians, art experts, educators, and lovers of culture. Here, many customers came to us with real-life frustrations. Some needed an online service but did not understand the concept of emails or web browsers. Some struggled to read. Some had what seemed like motor tics, shouting out sharp, loud grounds or threatening words even when no harm was intended. Some were convinced they were being followed or that every time they logged onto a computer, the device would be hacked and their passwords would be stolen. They were lost, frustrated, and at times angry. Until then, I did not realize how out of touch I'd been. How would I have guessed? Only a 10-minute walk away was a bustling business district with designer stores inside buildings by celebrity architects. Britain's major cultural institutions and urban nature reserve completed the picture of a thriving city center location. In the 15 years that I had lived in this country, I had never truly crossed paths with anyone like some of the visitors that I ended up seeing every week at the library. I've now worked at this library for almost a year. It can demand a lot of composure at times. I need to hold my nerve, and de-escalation techniques are crucial. I have, however, come to the conclusion that kindness is my best friend in difficult situations, even when I cannot help, which is often given that the library is not a social work office, a benefits hub, a citizens' advice bureau, a homeless shelter, a medical center, or the home of magic conjurers that I sometimes wished we were. Kindness and respect will always be noticed and felt. When strangers are briefly connected through moments of humanity, it makes our work a worthwhile pursuit. Hello, can I help? I looked up and smiled at a man approaching the enquiry desk. Yes, I need the bank account number and sort code to pay for my CSCS card, he said, anxious and agitated, clenching a crumpled sheet of paper in his hand. After carefully inquiring, I understood that he had been to a bank to try and pay for his CSCS, a construction work qualification card, but was told to provide the bank details. I quickly looked up CSCS and saw that the application process had gone fully digital. I tried to explain that he would first need to file an application, but he did not seem to understand. I need to phone them up to get their bank details so I can pay for the card, he explained again. Look, here's the money for the registration. He did not have access to an email address, which made an online application virtually impossible. I attempted to talk to CSCS on their live chat asking for an alternative way to apply, but was told to go online. The usual, either a bot was sending me generic messages or a human had switched off their communication feature, copying and pasting messages robotically. I came from the prison, you see, he said, explaining why he did not have a mobile phone or email address. For a minute, I thought he meant he had recently finished a prison term, but soon realized he was on day release and would need to return to prison by the day's end. There was a CSCS contact number that may or may not have helped, but there wasn't a phone for public use in the building, and I had no idea where the nearest payphone was. Google was of no help in this instant either. I tried to ask the security officers at the reception desk of the building and was told there was a phone booth across the road, but it was not clear whether it was still functional or not. He wasn't causing you any stress, was he? The security officer asked kindly. No, he's okay, but thanks for checking. It was true that when he first arrived at the enquiry desk, he had a bothered look that made me anxious about how the conversation would go. Somehow both of us managed to struggle through the frustrating situation calmly and amicably. I returned to the enquiry desk, defeated by an impossible process that would normally have been simple. Look, I did the construction work training in prison. I've already passed the test. He showed me his crumpled piece of paper. It stated that he had indeed passed with a golden star sticker and the words "well done" written on the page. How is it possible that someone was given the opportunity to take the construction qualification exam whilst in prison, but was not actually assisted in the process of registering as a qualified construction worker? In the end, I was able to tell him the location of the public phone booth. He also asked for the address of a citizens' advice bureau, so I looked up the travel details for him. I was not convinced that he would get the help he needed, but I was also unsure how to further assist. Under a haze of confusion, I said goodbye to him and wished him good luck. Who would be there for his next logistical hurdle? I wondered, wishing I could have done more. Thank you so much, he said to me before he left. This is the only positive interaction I have had today. For me, one seemingly trivial but genuinely challenging aspect of working in this library is the odor. It's quite intense, way above the level experienced on public transport in the summer, for example. I can only speculate that some of our visitors do not have access to showers and, judging from their clothes, identical outfit daily, needing a clean, they may not have access to laundry facilities either. Among those who turned up in the same outfit was Yvonne, a very softly spoken woman with a seemingly blank expression on her face whenever she walked into the library. and you could not miss the smell. People who innocently sat down next to her were known to have moved to different seats. At first, I did not know what to expect, and all I could perceive was the smell and the vacant expression. But I quickly realized that when I smiled at her, she would smile back. I got a place at a university, she told me one day. I congratulated her wholeheartedly, wanting it to be true. For a while, she came to the library most days, but I noticed that she spent more time reading than sitting in front of the computer. Later, she came less and less often. One day, during the week before Christmas, she showed up at the enquiry desk where we exchanged friendly hellos. Showing me a gift bag, she said, "I was given this box of chocolates and I want to give it to you." I hope I did the right thing. I politely thanked her, but declined. It sounded silly, but I really wanted her to have a treat. She asked a couple more times, even pointing at her belly, saying that she felt she ought to watch her weight. She was fine, average build, in my opinion. Eventually, I convinced her that she should keep it, and we wished each other Merry Christmas. It has been a few months since I last saw her. She must have a different routine now, in a better situation perhaps. I hope she's still reading her books, maybe treating herself to a few more pieces of chocolate every now and then. Working at an inner-city public library is not idyllic, nor is it endlessly depressing. It is real life, more on the edgy side for my fragile heart, which is easily broken by seeing people stuck in difficult situations. Some days I feel angry, sometimes helpless, sometimes a bit fed up, seeing vulnerable groups being left behind by society when I could offer no fundamental improvement to their predicaments. Some days I feel my compassion running low, struggling to be endlessly warm and patient when treated poorly, even though I know the other person has probably been through tough times. On any given day, I could be running a children's craft session attended by a sparky, beautifully dressed, confident child, effortlessly impressing me with her creativity and can-do approach. Sitting alongside her might be another child of the same age, unable to hold her scissors correctly or draw a smiley face, yelling at her guardian to fetch a library tablet so that she could watch videos on YouTube. A few meters away from the children's section, I once observed someone sitting on a sofa, motionless, their presence vacant and despairing. In the computer area, meanwhile, a woman with apparent memory issues became convinced that the computers had been hacked after typing either her passwords or the anti-bot captchas incorrectly, causing another day of great frustration. In previous visits, this woman had told me snippets of her life story, which was both extraordinary and heartbreaking. I had huge respect for her ability to remain polite and calm most days, despite having lived through such hardship. Later, another man asked me to book an online appointment for him. He did not remember his email address, but insisted on typing his name and the word Google in the mandatory email field, becoming frustrated when his attempts failed. Once someone lost their temper and shouted at me, only to apologize sheepishly a few hours later. "I'm not a bad person," he explained earnestly, "but I'm being followed. I had to call the police." Many visitors were very pleased when I simply showed them how to save files on OneDrive or copy and paste information from a web page. It always feels great to help, recommending a community class, successfully finding books, or sharing the sense of empowerment a visitor feels when they overcome their initial discomfort with the self-checkout machine after a few guided attempts. There's also a regular customer who loves telling me all about what he has learned from the books he reads from our display. Each of these moments is relatively brief, but leaves indelible marks in my memory. A few words, a facial expression, a gesture, an image. A man once came in and asked for help as he could not read. He showed me his hands, which carried signs of industrial accident. "There's nothing wrong with being a builder, but I would not want this for my child," he said, alluding to his lack of formal education. Even so, this is far from a true snapshot of everything that happens in the library. I will save the story of two musicians from a renowned orchestra playing Haydn, Mozart, and Jörg Bowen in the library for another time. What I have learned as my universal truth is that the library has huge potential. The potential to be a safe, accepting place, to assert the power of kindness, to show a glimpse of humanity in all its light and shadow, to encourage growth and to share stories. Stories that are written, told, and lived.